I can't change my name this time. Sometimes I can.
Let me see.
I'll take care of that, Marta.
Okay.
Weird. Sometimes I can change it and sometimes I can't.
It's not you, it's on the computer. Katie has to turn down the sound.
And Kristen, I've never really done this, the Zoom part, which is part of why I wanted to do it for you, because I figured that'd be better practice for me. I might be I have a little guide, but just, I mean, she's doing all the hard part.
The hardest thing is the first meeting of the morning, getting it set up, because from this point, it kind of runs itself the rest of the day.
It's really just sharing of the screen, right?
You
Of
have
the
to,
numbers.
every time, it's the sharing of the screen.
Katie, can you hear me?
feeling good, you're feeling good, you're running the meeting, so you can let Gwen know that.
Marta?
That's loud.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Michelle, and we are ready on eScribe with the video.
Okay, am I the host right now?
Good question.
I don't think I am, but
Let me check out front.
okay, now I'm the host. Michelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I can't hear any of you, but you're all muted. Okay.
Hey, Merta,
Yeah.
is there a way on your end that you can remove yourself as a host? I just accidentally selected it.
No.
I don't know what it was at the beginning.
The presenter laptop was the host.
Yeah, and I switched it and now I have no control.
Yeah, so yeah, Mirta needs to make you the host is what she needs to do in order to get it back.
Okay.
And Michelle, are you presenter?
No, Katie's
Okay,
presenter,
yeah.
Michelle's committee staff.
Okay, so I need to make Katie the
Yeah, the
Presenter.
presenter. Okay. Okay.
Okay, and then is Mirta is a guest, you just need to make her co-host. There we go.
Right, co-host. Yep.
okay,
Okay.
now we're set.
Okay. Are we good to go?
I believe so.
Michelle? Unmute. Mirta, this is Kirsten. I'm sorry. Katie's
That's okay.
Scribe computer was just kicked off of the network. I think
Okay.
it's a general IT issue, and we're working on getting it back set up.
Okay, you just let me know when you're ready, okay?
Okay.
Hi, Marta. It's Michelle. I'm back up and ready to go.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm going to call the Public Works Committee to order. Let's see. First thing is roll call. And let's see, Stacy Anderson? No, she's absent. Becerra's present. Contos?
Here.
Harp. Hess.
Present, and just for the record, I have limited connectivity now, so I'll just be audio only for this first meeting.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Jones,
Present.
Merritt,
Present.
Ramos,
Present.
Cheryl,
Present.
Vasika,
Present.
Von Lossberg,
Present, sorry.
okay, and West. West is absent. Okay, we have minutes to approve. Are there any changes to the minutes? None, those would be approved. I am admitting. For the record, Ms. West is here and Ms. Anderson. Okay, public comment. So clearly we're meeting virtually and public comment is a little bit different. You have to call in, and if we could get the numbers up, that would be great. Thank you. And so the number to call in is 1-253-215-8782. And the meeting ID number is 960-049-3694. And when you call in, if you can mute your TV or your computer, that will help us avoid the echo that is normally present if you have both on. I will call for public comment, and those are the numbers that you can call after we have a motion on the floor. Thank you. So next, I'm going to see if there's any public comment. I don't see anyone on the waiting room. Okay. So we will move on to our first item on the agenda, and that is an agreement for emergency repair services between the City of Missoula Utilities and Western Excavating, Knife River, and Paulson Electric. And Dennis Boatman is here to present.
Good morning, Dennis Bowman, Deputy Public Works Director of the Utilities. I move the City Council approve, authorize the mayor to sign agreements with Western Excavating, Knife River, Paulson Electric for emergency repair services for the City of Missoula Utilities in FY21 for a cost not to exceed $24,999. Background on this is since FY18, agreements for emergency repair services have been executed between contractors and the City of Missoula for Missoula Water to utilize emergency situations. For FY21, the City of Missoula Utilities would like to utilize Western Excavating, Knife River, and Paulson Electric for any emergencies that will present itself during FY21. The only financial implications will be out of the 3 utility enterprise funds. So in the past, I think this last year, we only had to utilize it once because we had emergency main break in the middle of the night over the winter. So it's just nice to have these contractors on contract, a set price for the whole year, so they can't adjust their price on materials or labor or equipment. It is a set price for the whole year, which is good that we can do this for all 3 utilities. In the past, we just did it for water, but bringing wastewater and stormwater in, it saves the city and the utilities some money.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, it's good to be prepared. Are there any questions from council members? Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think Mr. Bowman said this at the end of his presentation, but this is it pretty much the same terms as the contract that we put in place for this exact same thing last year?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm happy to make the recommended motion.
Great, thank you. So any other questions from council members? Okay. Let's take public comment on this issue, on this item. If we can have the numbers on the screen, Katie, that would be great. Okay. For the public, any you can also call in. You can leave a voice message for us, and that number is 406-552-6012, or you can email us at council@ci.missoula.mt.us. Thank you. Okay, so let's take a vote on this item. I don't see any public comment. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Anderson, sorry, can you hear me? Anderson?
Yes. Sorry, that was me.
Oh, it's okay. Becerra,
Yes.
Santos,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
and you are unanimous.
Thank you. So the motion will be on the consent agenda. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, everybody.
And item number 2 is COVID-19 sewage testing program. And Nate Gordon is here to present. Hi, Nate. Long time no see.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nate Gordon, the laboratory and pretreatment manager for the wastewater division. Wanted to bring you all up to speed on some interesting testing that we're doing from the wastewater treatment plant. Back in late April, we were contacted by a wastewater epidemiology company out of Massachusetts called BioBot Analytics. And what they do is analyze fragments of genetic material, RNA, that can detect the COVID virus in wastewater. So it's not the whole living virus, but it's fragments of it, and it can tell you how many copies of that virus are in the wastewater in a given community, and then the company tries to correlate those numbers to clinical cases in a community and use that as a predictive tool for what's going to happen with clinical cases in a community. Recent studies with that type of work have shown that a signal of the virus in wastewater can appear about a week before you see clinical cases in a community. And so they're trying right now to quantify that correlation and describe it better. Right now, they don't really understand what the correlation is, but they do see trends with increased numbers in wastewater correlating directly with increased clinical cases in communities. So there is potential for this type of testing to be a canary in the coal mine, if you will, and let different communities know that in a week from now, we might have more clinical cases because we're seeing increasing numbers in wastewater. So back in April, this company, BioBot, was inviting treatment plants from around the country to participate in a pro bono study, they called it, where they will analyze your wastewater samples for $120 a pop. Their normal price is $1,200 a pop. So this was a considerable discount to try and get communities on board back in for the month of May. And we agreed to send 4 samples, 1 each week during the month of May, just to get a look at what's happening in Missoula. And so we've done that, and we've received 3 of those sample results back, and they've all been negative. They're all totally non-detect. So we have not seen any fragments of the virus in wastewater yet. We're still waiting on our 4th week of May sample. My assumption is that it will be negative also. That's my hope, right? But if there is something in that 4th sample, it might indicate that that we're starting to see more cases in the community, and it would be an interesting thing to track over time as communities are reopening. So there, to some degree, you're getting some pretty good real-time data from these analyses, and other things that we can learn from it would be which strains of the virus are in different communities. There are different strains with different infectivities. If we were seeing different strains, say around the state of Montana, we could maybe determine that and source those to different locations. But for now, we don't have plans to move forward with this testing with BioBot at $1,200 per sample. That's just not in anybody's budget right now. And so we're looking at the May data. The May data is all negative, and moving forward, we'll have to decide if and when it makes sense for the community to put those kinds of resources towards this particular type of testing. As all these results roll in, I immediately get them right to Ellen Leahy as our health officer, and she and Cindy Farr at the health department can look at this information and compare it with the clinical information that they're seeing on a routine basis. And obviously right now, with no clinical cases and nothing in the wastewater, everything looks good. If that were to change, this could potentially be a valuable public health tool for them. And so that's just in a nutshell what we have going on, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about that program.
Thank you, Nate. So it sounds like this is a tool to inform the health department. For example, if you were to capture some positive results, then the health department could deploy more testing in the community, or a different kind of testing. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. If we did start to see a surge in numbers of copies of the virus in wastewater, that would indicate that there's a higher possibility that we will see clinical cases with symptoms. Another benefit of testing the wastewater is you can also see those copies of the virus from asymptomatic carriers. So if we do have folks in the community carrying the virus and shedding it, then we might detect it in wastewater where they're never going to a clinic, and so we're not counting them.
Yeah, and then just very quickly, if we were to do additional testing, is that something covered under the FEMA allocation for COVID-19? Do you know?
My understanding is that if Ellen Leahy ordered this sort of testing as a public health measure, then it would be covered by FEMA.
Okay, thanks. Heidi and then Stacy.
This is super fascinating. I was wondering if BioBot shared any of the information from the other 400 cities. I imagine that Missoula probably is on the lower end of cases of those 400 cities, and that there's a lot of maybe thresholds that could be identified from looking at this bigger data. And so I'm wondering if that was something that's available to us or to communities in general to look at, to, I guess, gauge when it's useful to implement testing again.
I have not seen that information yet. I believe that they bit off more than they could chew in the month of May by inviting all of these treatment plans from around the country to participate. They got backlogged, which is why we still don't have our 4th week of May results. And they were pretty slow getting us the first 3 weeks. I think their goal, yes, is to basically map the infection across the country and show that data for the entire country as an epidemiological tool. That they're not there yet. So I think that's the goal though.
Stacy?
Thanks so much. This is really fascinating, and it's unfortunate that we're not going forward. I think that we should definitely look at trying to find funds, I think, to continue this testing. So the question I have is, if we do continue it, are we locked into, if we were to decide to continue, are we locked into like every week? Can we do every other week? And with this sort of pilot program sort of ending and maybe less cities will move forward, do they expect to be able to have the turnaround time quicker?
Great question. That BioBot is trying to get communities to commit long-term for their own business model, obviously, but they're giving price breaks for 24-month contracts, 12-month contracts, and 6-month contracts. And they are recommending that you test at the minimum every 2 weeks. So that would be 2 samples per month. I believe with the latency time of the virus and when you're seeing active infections, you wouldn't want to test less frequently than that. If you were only testing once a month, you'd probably be missing some cases that, you know, gestated and became clinical cases, and you didn't see them in a wastewater sample. That said, if we were to move forward with BioBot, we could potentially sign up for a 12-month contract and get some sort of price break on each sample, and sample twice a month instead of every single week. And that could control costs. Other options that I'm exploring right now include local labs. Through the university, there are folks that have the equipment to do this kind of work, but nobody that is currently testing wastewater for anything, alone a pathogenic virus. So it's going to take a little bit of time on the front end, I believe, for a local lab to gear up for this type of work. And it's also hard to commit to if you don't know that there's a guaranteed revenue stream to fund that testing. In Bozeman, I know that the Belgrade and Bozeman treatment plants are working with local researchers at MSU, and they're getting very quick turnaround on their results because they're not testing 400 treatment plants and they're local. BioBot has committed to a 7-day turnaround moving forward. Whether that's turns out to be feasible for them or not, we'll just have to wait and see.
Madam Chair, may I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So I guess it's 2-part if I'm allowed. So is BioBot the only national company of this nature doing this sort of thing? And are we able to kind of get in with Belgrade and Bozeman to get our samples tested in Bozeman?
Good questions. I'm not aware of another company doing anything on this scale. I think as this has exploded as a concept, I know there are others around the country, like the folks at MSU, that are testing locally. I haven't seen the type of business model that BioBot has put together anywhere else. It could happen though, right? It would make sense for someone on the West Coast to duplicate that effort. I haven't been in contact with the lab in Bozeman, but that is something I will look into as a possibility.
Great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, next I have Amber, and then Sandra, and then Julie.
Yeah, great. Who knew that this subject would be so fascinating? So with BioBot, do you know, like, I'm just kind of curious about, like, what other pathogens are they testing? Like, what is their business model for other pathogens and how predictive? And I realize pathogens are all different, but like, how predictive is that? Do they, can you speak to that a little bit? Is that clear?
I'm not aware of other pathogens that BioBot studies. To the best of my knowledge, they just established this company for this purpose. Well, no, that's not true. They were monitoring something else. I'm not exactly sure how they started their business, but when this became when this became a national pandemic, they shifted their focus, I believe, almost entirely to COVID mapping. I mean, their basic model has always been wastewater epidemiology, but I'm not sure what they were tracking before COVID came along. I think this gave them a clear direction forward as a company that met a real need nationally. So,
May I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So do you, how are they envisioning kind of sharing this larger information? I mean, is this, they're tracking all these 400 communities around the country, and I'm just kind of curious how they see this fitting into the bigger picture of how COVID is moving across our country.
mm-hmm. I can't speak to exactly what their plan is. They have a website. If you go to biobot.io, and they have a COVID link on their website that describes their wastewater testing program specifically for COVID and the progress that's being made. So I know that they are updating that regularly. My assumption would be, as they have national trends or correlations that they discover between wastewater and clinical cases, I would imagine that would be posted on their website and then also published in the media.
Okay. Sandra, you had your hand up, but I don't see it up anymore.
Oh yeah, Heidi asked my question, so thank you.
Okay. Julie.
Thank you, Mirta. I was also curious about what Bozeman was doing, so I'm glad you addressed that with finding out that they were going through MSU. I would be very interested to see if Missoula can get in on that, because as I understand it, Bozeman's been testing their wastewater stream from very early on in this pandemic. And they did, as I think I remember reading, that they had detectable limits or detectable amounts of the virus in their waste stream pretty early on. I want to say that was back in April that they had detectable limits. So thinking about a couple of things, I guess. One, obviously, any sewer system has a certain amount of inflow and infiltration from groundwater that kind of dilutes the stream. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about if that has an effect on whether or not we reach those detectable thresholds based on what you know about how much I&I we have on our sewer system.
Great question. So I&I will basically just dilute the sewage that's coming down the pipeline. And so what that would do is make it harder to detect, or not detect, harder to sample an individual virus particle. So the way our sampling works is we have an automatic sampler that is flow proportional. So when there are times of higher flow through the sewer system coming into the plant, we'll sample more and we'll sample slightly less during low flow times. So it's flow proportional, and then it's over a 24-hour time period. So the sampling occurs over 24 hours. And so obviously there could be a viral particle that gets past our sampler. We're not sampling all the wastewater, we're just taking a representative sample. So infiltration water that would dilute that wastewater might just make it trickier for us to sample viral particles if they are present at a really low level in the wastewater. We could miss something.
Brian?
Thanks. Thanks so much, Nate. Really interesting and useful information. Not really a question, just I wanted to add my voice and echo what Julie kind of brought up and others. I think there's tremendous value in touching base with the folks in Bozeman. I appreciate you mentioning you would do that. I think what I think about in that regard is I was tracking some of the same information that I think Julie was referencing, and it seems, unless I am misremembering it, that now with the benefit of hindsight, there's a predictive aspect to what we could learn from sampling the wastewater that right now I don't know what sort of value that has, but I think all of us have eyes toward late summer, fall, winter next year, and I guess the simplest way to put it is any sort of information that gets us, time has value. So if we get information that gets us a week or 2 weeks ahead of something, an outbreak or a spike, there is tremendous value associated with, a week or two. So thank you, and just wanted to add my voice to urging us to make those connections.
Thank you.
Thanks. And John?
Yeah, I think Brian answered it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so no more, I don't see any other hands up, and this is an informational item only, so we don't need a motion, but I would ask that we put the number to call in just in case people have comments or want to voice their opinion on this. Okay. And thank you. And I don't see anyone calling in or in the waiting room. Okay. Thank you, Nate, for the presentation. And if you learned something, let us know. We're clearly all very interested in how this can help us monitor the situation.
Will do. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And we don't have any other items on the agenda. Any final questions or comments from council members? Okay, so we would be adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, Marita.
Thank you.
So Marita, can you go ahead and make me co-host for the, oh wait, we have parks
No,
before.
I was about to say, not yet, make me co-host.
Jumping the gun, sorry, jumping
Okay.
the gun.
You can run it if you want to, because you don't have enough meetings to run.
Yeah, I'll pass.
I don't think I can make you co-host. I think Michelle or Katie have to make you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't see it as a, I can put you in the waiting room.
I don't think I want that. I don't know how to do that though. I know we, I thought it was an option when you were the host, but.
I'm the co-host, that's why.
Oh, that's probably true. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought as co-host you could, but
Maybe someone can tell me how to do it.
I think it would appear there like you were checking under the name. It's kind of weird. It's like the renaming where sometimes you can
I'll
do
be
it.
back.
Yeah, so I can rename, put in waiting room, but not make co-host.
Hey, Amber, are you still there? Did you? Your video's gone.
I think she said she'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I'll get her when she comes back. Hey, Amber.
Yes, Brian?
Hey, I just wanted to give a heads up. I think, is your meeting scheduled to go kind of, I think we're, if we
10:40.
run full time, right, like pretty close right up to the 5-minute increments or whatever, or 5-minute space.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So
I just,
mine shouldn't take too long.
okay.
We've got
I just
15
want to give a
minutes.
heads up. We've got probably a dozen invited guests that I've asked to attend via a Zoom link to the committee of the whole meeting with the police chief.
Okay.
So if we do run up to the end of your time frame, it's possible that you might start seeing people come in for that.
Right. Right.
So I think if you start seeing some people right about that time, well, I guess within the time frame, maybe, you know, whoever comes in first, check and see. But I just wanted to flag that.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. So,
I would say if you get toward the end and you start seeing folks, if there's time, I mean, I think you should just stay within your time frame.
Yeah.
But if you wind up checking with someone and they're a guest from UM, like one of the student groups, just tell them to hold on, and I would not worry about anybody queuing up, and wrap up your meeting, and then we'll pick up with Cal.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I've not let anyone in a meeting yet, so I'm gonna. This is my first virtual meeting, and I'm gonna start it in 2 minutes, regardless who's on.
Yeah, good idea.
So I think I'm still the co-host, so I just let Jordan in, but maybe someone can make Amber the host now.
I think I'm a co-host too, though, because I just I let Jordan in.
Oh, yeah, you
You're
are
both-
co-host.
You're both showing as co-hosts, actually, both Amber and
Yeah.
Mirta.
Okay.
Click on share screen. What you want to have is the names up here, and you can see people raising their hand.
Share screen. I don't want to do that. That shows my. That's. Brian, where do I see people in the waiting room? Does that pop up?
Yeah, it would pop up like if you've got the participants open.
Okay.
The
I
last
do.
time when I did it, I saw people pop up at the top.
At the top. Okay, good. I'll scroll down too.
And then you'll see,
Thank you.
you can press on admit. So
Yeah.
you let them in.
Perfect.
You did with
Okay.
Jordan, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting because we have a pretty tight schedule today. So I am calling to order the Parks and Conservation meeting on June 10th. And I'm going to do a roll call here. We have Gwen Jones, we have Ramos, Amber Sherrill, Brian Von Lossberg, Mirta Becerra, John Contos. I'm probably going too fast. Sandra Vasica, Julie Merritt, Stacy Anderson, Jordan Hess, and I know Heidi West is here as well. So we are missing Heather Harp. Is there anyone else I'm missing here? This is kind of a hard way to do it. So first, we are in a virtual meeting, and so our public participation is a little different than it is when we're in person. Can we get up the number to call, please? If you would like to participate and make public comment, please call 253-215-8782. Again, that's 253-215-8782. And the meeting ID is 960-049-3694. So I will keep checking the waiting room throughout, but please feel free to make make a public comment on items not on the agenda, but related to Parks and Conservation, or items on the agenda. We'll just take it all at once. And I'll just go ahead and start, and I'll keep checking the waiting room as we move along, since we have such a tight agenda today. We have minutes from, they are back from March. I don't have that right. March 11th that we need to approve in that meeting, which was quite a long time ago. But we reappointed Rob Erickson to the Open Space Advisory Committee. And are there any changes to those minutes? I don't see any hands up, and seeing no changes, those minutes will stand approved. So we only have one agenda item today, and David Selvage is here. Thank you for being here. And this is the Redfern Park agreement with the Homeowners Association for parkland to be deeded to the city. Hi, David. Thank you.
Greetings, council members. We have a unique opportunity we don't get to do very often, and that is to accept a gift of parkland from a homeowners association to Is that on?
Yep.
That's on. Thank you. Greetings, council members. We have the opportunity to accept a piece of parkland from a homeowners association that is invested in their own neighborhood park. Canyon Creek Village Homeowners Association is proposing to transfer 3/10 of an acre of parkland, developed parkland, to the city here to match a pending transfer from Missoula County to the city of the balance of Redfern Park. That will create a 2.44 acre park, neighborhood park. The park has gone through a master planning process that provides for service to the larger neighborhood and is relevant to what that neighborhood wants. And this total parkland here comes with a well on Missoula County property that feeds some landscaping boulevards areas that the city will continue to provide or supply the water for. The Canyon Creek Village has requested opportunities to schedule their park at no additional cost. And so with that, this is a win-win as far as I've seen. And we would ask that you approve the memorandum of agreement and authorize the mayor to sign and accept the deed for the parkland.
Great, thank you. And I'll take questions from council, and then we'll go back to some public comments. So I think I've got Sandy first.
Yes, thank you. I noticed that on the Redfern Park conceptual master plan, the picture there on the legend, it says that there's going to be a community garden, and I don't see that listed on there. So I was just curious of where that was going to be in there.
Typically, a community garden wouldn't have a spot here. We'd pick that with the promoters of that garden when it came to be.
Okay, thank you.
Julie Merritt and then John Contos.
Thanks, David. I am excited about adding this parkland and perhaps, hopefully, getting the chance to develop it with some playground equipment. I know that the neighborhood has lots of kids in it. So I have a question about the irrigation, though. You said that the existing well is for just irrigation of boulevards. Is that correct?
No, the existing well that irrigates the park has been extended into their street right-of-way landscape boulevard. And the city will have to continue to supply water to that boulevard as part of this agreement. It's a small area.
Okay, so do we intend to continue using the well and the system just as it is right now, or will there be a change to that?
No, the system would continue to operate and they would continue to manage their own lateral line for their landscape, their entry feature landscaping. And that would have no impact on how the park is irrigated. It's just a shared section of the clock for irrigation purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I had one other unrelated question, if you will, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
And it's about the signage. I'm not sure that this was specifically addressed in the memorandum of understanding, and it's probably just implicit. But I wanted to ask, especially that, will we be posting the standard, if you will, Parks and Rec signage there, especially as in regards to the prohibition of any firearms or fireworks at this location?
Yes, the standard city signage package will eventually be installed at this park, subject to receipt and then funding availability. But the normal signage should be able to happen fairly quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Contos.
Yes, thank you. David, I was wondering if you could tell me why they want to give us this piece of property?
An excellent question. The county's 2.1 acres of deeded parkland was determined to not to be sufficient by the homeowners association. So they invested $93,000 in buying an additional community lot from the developer, and then they had it landscaped. They added their own irrigation and hooked onto the existing wells, and they want to maintain that as one whole park. And if you look on a ownership map here, it's a section that sits right square in the middle of their entry. So when you enter the park, it's a big green space. I think that there's the homeowners see tremendous value in that being part of the park.
Thanks.
Gwen Jones.
I was curious, I see that there's a master plan for this, a conceptual master plan, and then a submittal to the CIP list, capital improvement projects list. Do you have any sense of timing? It looks like it's listed as a priority, but the CIP list can take time to get to those priorities. Do you have any sense of when this would be built out?
Along with all the other capital improvement requests that Parks Department has made of council, I think that they need a new playground fairly quickly. As was indicated, there are a lot of children in this neighborhood. This is a new part of town, so there may be a greater urgency. I would kick that back to the ward reps as to what the urgency is, or the necessity versus all other needs across the board. But it definitely fits our the Parks and Recreation Department's criteria for putting it forward now.
All right, thank you. We're gonna need to get through these questions pretty quickly. I know that Mirta cannot raise her hand for some reason. So I think she was next trying to raise her hand. So Mirta, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted, first of all, I wanted to make the motion. And I also wanted to add that this is an area that was annexed into the city, and they have been working really hard on developing a master plan for a park that better meets the needs of the neighborhood. So I am happy that that the city is taking ownership of the park for maintenance and everything that comes with it being part of the city.
Thank you. And that's a great point to bring up. I appreciate you making that. I have Jordan, Julie, Merritt, and then I'm going to take the vote.
Great, thanks. I was going to speak to the motion. This was a really collaborative process between this neighborhood with the homeowners association. Mirta and I were both part of the negotiation process when this came forward. You know, I think the homeowners association saw a tremendous value after having been annexed in leveraging the expertise of the Parks Department to maintain their park and improve their park. To David's point, since this is in Ward 2, there is tremendous urgency with building this playground. I'm just advocating for constituents here. I mean, it's a great neighborhood, and it's a great little park, and the plans will improve it that much more. So appreciate everyone's support and appreciate process moving forward to complete the improvements.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. I do not see anyone in the waiting room for public comment, and we have a motion on the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and take a vote so we can move on to our next committee meeting. So do I need to take it one? I guess all in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any abstentions? Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, and that is going to be on the consent agenda for Monday. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And unless any of the council have any more comments, we are going to be adjourned, and we are going to move on to our committee of the whole meeting in just a second.
Thanks, Amber.
Thank you. I do not know how to make you a host though, Brian.
Yeah, so if I don't know who is at the presenter computer right now.
Should I have let them take a vote? I'm just kind of curious. Someone else take a vote? That was probably really confusing for the person taking.
I think generally what we've been doing is roll call votes because of the virtual environment, but
yeah,
that worked out okay. I would in the future I would do a roll call vote.
Yeah. Okay.
And let the staff person call it because then they're recording it. But you did great.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know how to make you a host, so I'm just.
No, that's okay. I'll work with staff.
And I don't know what the problem was for Mirta trying to raise her hand either.
It's because she is still listed as a co-host.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah, you can't raise your hand if you're a co-host.
Okay, so I don't want to be a co-host because I might have a.
No, well, I'll make sure that you guys get taken off of there.
Okay, thanks. I saw you and I'm like, why is she raised that I'm. All right.
I think you have people knocking in the waiting room, but maybe Brian, you let them in once you become.
Yeah, if I'm not sure who is there from staff, but if they could make me co-host, we're gonna have about a dozen people. Thank you. I'm gonna start admitting some people.
Is that yours?
Brian, this is Kirsten.
Hi, Kirsten.
I have Michelle Blackman who's going to be helping me out. I think she just ran to get some coffee. She'll be back in just a moment.
Okay.
I did receive some public comment in our box out front so far.
Okay.
So towards the end of the chief's presentation, I'll go and check it for more comment, and then I can read that into the record if you'd like me to. How would you like to handle that?
Yeah, let's. I think we'll do it at the end of the meeting, which when we've got the agenda item for public comment, and we'll start with that.
Okay, great.
Thanks. And I want to start welcoming folks. Alexios, I believe you've joined us. And Isaac.
Some point during the meeting, I will go and check that box.
So
Hello, Chief.
I was muted. Morning.
Good morning.
Is that, let me go close those blinds behind me, so.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for putting that up.
Is that better?
Keep going. All the way down.
All the way down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of light that comes up just through that top. Oh, there you go.
I don't necessarily want to operate in the dark, but
Hello, Teresa.
Hello.
Thanks for joining. Is it Kirsten or Michelle at the staff computer?
Hey, we're both looking at Zoom right now, Brian.
Hey, Kirsten, could you do me a favor? Could you make Gwen a co-host as well?
I will have to stop sharing the screen.
Oh,
to do
okay.
that, but I can do that. I'll stop sharing and take a look. Gwen, more.
And it's always a go.
So I believe that Gwen is now a co-host. If I can
Is
find
that
her.
a-
Yes, both you and Gwen are co-hosts.
Great. So
I'm
Gwen,
gonna go.
So the green is co-host?
Okay, I just let the next person in.
actually, that's why. So I was realizing we may have people joining while I convene the meeting. So I thought I'd go ahead and preemptively make you a co-host. And if you see people waiting in the waiting room and I'm talking, just go ahead and let them in.
I will be the greeter.
Thank you.
Brian, I'm gonna go back and share those phone numbers. Just let
Yeah.
us know when you're ready for me to take that down.
Great. Thank you.
If you yeah, go make sure everything's okay with the eScribe.
Brian, there's a phone number that I don't recognize. Should I just let everyone in at this point?
Let me
Let's
do.
see.
I will check on that. Hang on a
Okay.
second.
There are some names also. I am just not familiar with
Yeah.
who you invited.
Hi, caller with phone numbers ending in 0224. Were you calling for public comment or were you one of the attendees for the meeting?
Brian, it looks like they are muted within Zoom, and so you will need to unmute them.
Thank you.
We'll do that.
Okay. I'm trying. Hi, caller
Hi,
with the.
this is Madison Donor with NBC Montana. I'm just calling for the 11 o'clock committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, and Madison, your phone number ends in 0224?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Brian, this is Kirsten. We're ready on this end when you're ready.
Okay. Hang on one more second. I'm going to admit this person. And caller with the phone number ending in 2714. Were you calling to just attend the meeting, or were you one of the invited folks?
I'm calling to just attend the meeting and make public comment.
Okay, thanks. We're going to do public comment at the end of the meeting, so I'm going to go ahead and mute you here, but you're welcome to stay on there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Kirsten, you said you're ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready to go on this end.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, June 10th. And I'll beg your indulgence. We have a large group joining today, and I will do my best to manage that. We are continuing to meet virtually in our council committees due to the coronavirus. We do public comment a little differently with the virtual meetings, and with today's meeting, we don't have an action item. We're going to have an update from Police Chief White, and we'll be taking public comment at the end of the meeting, probably around the last 5 to 10 minutes of the meeting. I want to mention up on the screen, we have some information about joining the meeting and providing public comment. There are a number of phone numbers up there. I'll read the first one off, which is area code 253-215-8782. There's a meeting ID number, which is 960-049-3694. There's also a council voicemail box, 406-552-6012. That gets digitized and sent to the entire council. And there is a council email address, council@ci.missoula.mt.us, that also goes to everyone. We have a full agenda today. Oh, and I'm sorry, before I get to that, we have minutes from June 3rd meeting. Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will be approved. So I want to welcome everybody, and we have a number of guests attending as well, and I want to extend a warm welcome to those folks. We're going to have an introduction today, an update from our new police chief, Chief White.
Excuse me, Council President, we haven't taken attendance yet.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Kirsten. All council members are present.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're going to have a update from our new police chief, White, who's been here for, I believe, about 3 months. And I also want to acknowledge that we've got several student leaders and I believe some advisors from various student groups at the university. One of the things that I appreciated when the protests started was Police Chief White reaching out to diverse you at the group and meeting with some of those folks. And I wanted to invite some of those folks to this meeting as well. There'll be a chance after Police Chief White's intro or update for those folks to address council and the mayor, who's also attending, and the chief. I want to say how important your voices and experiences and perspectives are as we move forward. So I appreciate your time and interest in joining us today. We are going to take up a number of topics after this meeting in subsequent public safety and health meetings. And I look forward to your participation and your guidance and your help as we move into that. I want to briefly say,
Brian?
yeah.
Sorry, I really hate to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I just received a text from a person in the public that says we don't have any sound on the MCAT feed.
That's obviously a problem.
This is Kirsten. Just a moment. I'll look into that.
Okay, we'll pause for a moment while we try to get that resolved. Thanks for interrupting, Julie. So folks who just joined the meeting, apparently we have a problem with the audio over the MCAT feed. So we're just taking a pause to see if that can get resolved.
President von Lossberg, I just checked with MCAT and they do have it broadcasting in their back room. I don't know exactly what the problem is that the caller was having, but everything on this end appears to be working just fine.
Okay, so I apologize if there is an issue for someone out there. We do have a recording going on YouTube, a live stream on YouTube. So we're going to go ahead and continue. Hope that that problem is resolved, and if not, that there is an archive of this. Before we get to the mayor next, I wanted to just briefly mention some context. There's a Washington Post editorial this morning that I've been thinking a lot about since I read it, and it really talks about the way that the pandemic and our experience with the pandemic is prompting us all to reimagine, I think was their language, virtually everything we do, and touching from things from education to healthcare, support for people who are unemployed, to pretty much every other aspect of society. I think there's a nexus or an intersection with the opportunity before us as well, since the protests and the killing of George Floyd. We're going to hear from the chief today. I think that there's a lot of understandable focus on procedures and funding and transparency, and I think those are all good and appropriate things for us to be looking at. It's not the complete scope of things, but that reimagining that we're doing on a national level around a number of fronts really has a parallel in us reimagining the way that we approach public safety and how we can do that more efficiently and better. And so I want to just provide that context. I mentioned that we'll be following up in subsequent public safety and health meetings, as well as we'll be heading into budget during the July timeframe. So with that, Mayor, I wanted to turn it over to you for some introductory remarks and to introduce the chief.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I'm trying to unmute the mayor.
How about now?
Yeah.
My apologies. At some point I'll get this technology figured out. Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll be mercifully brief because I really want you all to hear from Jason White. Jason comes to us from a long career with the California Highway Patrol, and was hired as a product of what I thought was a really thoughtful process. We had community members join us for those interviews and selection. He met with members of the community, met with members of police department staff, met with a number of council members and other city staff. And at the end of the day, Jason brings, I think, a depth of experience and a level of professionalism and respect for the new community he calls home in Missoula, and its people and its values and its traditions. And over the course of the last 3 months, he's had to hit the ground running under extraordinary circumstances. And during the course of our initial conversations after Jason was hired, we began long conversations about training capacity, the things we do well as a department, the things we'd like to improve as a department. And despite the fact that there is a lot of focus today on policing, we have been evolving as a department for a long time, and that evolution continues. And many of the things that Chief White will talk about today were in process before Mr. Floyd was murdered, and many of the calls for police reforms began airing nationwide and certainly in our community. We are works in progress, and we hope that that through our continued commitment to improve, to train better, and to continue our collaboration with the community, that the Missoula Police Department will continue to be a reflection of how the community hopes to be protected and served by that entity. Jason has, as I suggested, great experience and great ideas. He can share some of those with you today. And he also has data. As much as we look at national trends and statistics and stark examples of racism and violence in police departments around the country, we have data around use of force, complaints, and more. Some of the reforms that have been called for actually are a function of our policies today. And as I suggested, we have been looking at those policies and continue to look at those policies. And Jason started looking at our use of force again before national attention was once again turned to systemic racism and violence among police departments. So I believe that Chief White is the right person at the right time. I continue to have faith in the women and men of the Missoula Police Department. And I am committed to us improving and continuing to make Missoula safe for everyone. We are far from perfect in every department at the city of Missoula, whether it's police or development services or you name it, but we're in the business of always trying to get better and respond as circumstances in our environment changes and as we know more. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Jason, who under any other circumstance would likely have had time to meet you in person, but everybody's been in a vertical and virtual scramble for the last 3 months. So I'm glad you have an opportunity to spend some time with him today.
Thank you, Mayor. Floor is yours, Chief White.
Thank you, council members and Mayor Engen. I'm honored and humbled to serve as your Chief of Police for the Missoula Police Department. 31 years ago, I raised my right hand for the first time to swear to uphold the Constitution and faithfully protect my community. Over those 31 years, I've worked as a juvenile hall counselor, deputy probation officer, and a member of the California Highway Patrol before becoming your chief. I've always worked hard to educate myself so that I can be the best public servant possible. To that end, I earned an undergrad degree in criminal justice and a Juris Doctorate with a certificate in governmental affairs. And yes, I am an attorney. I graduated from the California Peace Officer Standards and Training Command College, and I'm a distinguished graduate of the FBI National Academy. I also hold numerous certificates in law enforcement related matters. All that being said, I think it is my approach to being a law enforcement leader that matters more than any of those professional credentials. I have believed from the beginning of my career that being a peace officer is a noble calling. To me, there is no other profession in the world that allows you to serve your community in the manner in which a peace officer does. We take an oath to be there in people's greatest time of need. And in fulfilling that oath, we also recognize that we may have to lay down our own lives instead of swerving from the path of duty. I've always believed in and supported a community-based policing model, a model that is inclusive. You see, we're all in this together as a team. We have to be adaptive and innovative to find creative solutions to public safety issues. We have to maintain the trust of the public by upholding the oath we took to protect them. We have to openly communicate with the public, and we need to ensure our policies and oversight are proper and in line with the best practices. I've had the privilege of serving this community and the men and women of the Missoula Police Department for the past 90 or so days. To be honest, the past 90 days have been a blur. I was anticipating the ability to get my feet under me, getting to meet all the stakeholders, engaging with the community, and looking for opportunities to enhance this great department. But as they say, the best plans laid oft go astray. You see, on my 10th day on the job, we began facing the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the issues to address it. And now we are addressing another national concern caused by the unconscionable criminal act of a police officer in Minneapolis. So what have I learned in my first 90 days? One thing I've learned is the women and men of the Missoula Police Department are professionals who are dedicated public servants. They all care about this community and strive to improve the quality of life for our residents. To help them with this honorable goal, we have opened up lines of communication within the department so that critical information about the things they need to know about their job is being provided to them. We've explored opportunities to help them enhance their capabilities and provide them with greater skills to do their difficult jobs. One of these enhanced training opportunities came from the suggestion of the officers within the department. And let me tell you about that. It's called the Mini Academy. This program has been around for many years and was 2 weeks in length. It is the training officers receive after they have graduated from the Police Academy in Helena and before they begin their field training and evaluation program. Upon reviewing the program, officers suggested ways to improve the training with additional topics and practical scenarios. The Mini Academy has now been expanded to 3 weeks. The purpose of the Mini Academy is to familiarize new officers with the policies and procedures of the Missoula Police Department. It is a mixture of classroom learning, hands-on learning, and scenarios. The instructors are the departmental experts for that particular topic. We want to make sure that our newest officers have the knowledge, skills, and most importantly, confidence to go into the field to begin their training with their field training officers. We have 6 new officers who will graduate from the academy on June 24th, and they will be the first to go through this updated training program. Training is an integral part of providing professional policing. All of our officers have received basic training through an academy. We conduct various in-house training, and we participate in outside training given the resources we are provided. We can do better in this area, but it will take additional resources. In order to implement the procedural justice training, additional use of force and de-escalation training, we will need to enhance our training budget. I will be presenting a reasoned and justified proposal to enhance our training budget in the upcoming budget process. Another line of communication that has been opened up is with the public. We have made a concerted effort to provide the public information about the police department and our efforts on our social media platforms and through media outlets. Our goal is to be transparent and tell our story. One of my goals is to develop a comprehensive annual report that will be made available to the public. Topics will include our calls for service, community engagement efforts, use of force statistics, complaint investigation statistics, and information about our strategic plan efforts. It is my belief that providing this information will continue to build trust with the public we serve. We have also engaged in meaningful and necessary communication with the diverse communities we serve. All voices need to be recognized, heard, and understood. As I mentioned earlier, we are all in this together, and we must operate as a team to address any issues. My commitment is to continue in these valuable conversations. One of the issues that is at the forefront of everyone's mind is the use of force. So let me spend a few moments talking about that. I want to put into context the Missoula experience. The last report from the United States Department of Justice on this issue was in 2018. In that report, the Department of Justice stated that 2% of law enforcement contacts resulted in threatened or use of force. In 2019, the Missoula Police Department handled 60,427 incidents. Out of those, there were 172 incidents involving the threat or use of force. That equates to a 0.3% of incidents involving the Missoula Police Department. That is well below the national average and demonstrates our officers' commitment to resolving matters without resorting to the use of force to gain compliance from the subject involved in the contact. Another part of use of force that needs to be discussed is in custody death. In 2019, the Missoula Police Department had one in custody death as a result of an officer-involved shooting. In 2018, there was one death as a result of another officer-involved shooting. There were no in custody deaths for 2017, 2016, or 2015. It should be noted that all officer-involved shootings are independently investigated by the state's Division of Criminal Investigation and submitted to the county attorney's office for review. That review includes a separate independent investigation called a coroner's inquest. The 2018 officer-involved shooting was deemed to be justified through these multi-layered independent reviews. The 2019 incident occurred near the end of the year and is still pending the coroner's inquest. The hearing for that inquest hasn't been scheduled yet due to the COVID-19 restrictions. It is important to note that in both of these incidents, the person was armed with a firearm, and in spite of the officers' valiant attempts to de-escalate the situation, the person aimed their firearm at the officers. We have a comprehensive use of force reporting process. All officers are required to document their actions in their reports. Additionally, a supervisor completes a separate use of force report to evaluate the officer's actions. That report is then forwarded up the chain of command for review and approval. The purpose of this report and review is to ensure that any use of force is legally justified and within departmental policy. We've always looked for areas to improve and build trust within the community. As such, we have already undertaken efforts to review and revise our use of force policy to provide for best practices. Additionally, we have already scheduled lawful force retrainer for all of our staff. We also have reviewed our reporting procedures to ensure they are proper and being followed. The other issue that many people have brought forward is officer accountability. Accountability begins with the officer. Through our hiring process, we strive to hire the best candidates that represent the core values of our profession and our community. Candidates receive thorough background checks and pass a psychological screening before being hired. The Missoula Police Department has implemented various policies and procedures to provide proper supervision. The department has a team of corporals, sergeants, and lieutenants who provide direct supervision and guidance. Since 2014, the department has had a body-worn camera program and a policy that articulates when they are to be used. Our policy requires activation of a body-worn camera under the following circumstances: contact with victims, witnesses, and suspects regard to calls for service or officer-initiated contact concerning criminal or suspicious activity, service of any court order, and welfare checks to include medical calls or suicidal people. All searches of persons, vehicles, and buildings to include searches because of an alarm. All traffic stops. The transportation of any person related to criminal or suspicious activities or for humanitarian reasons. Any personal contact that becomes adversarial once the officer realizes the contact is becoming adversarial. Documentation of all crime and crash scenes. And any activity that a reasonable officer would know would be important to record. We currently have 40 body-worn cameras. That number allows us to outfit each patrol officer on shift with a camera system. However, due to charging times, download of data from previous shifts, and equipment repairs, we are unable to fully equip all of our patrol officers all the time. In the upcoming budget cycle, I will be putting forward a request for additional camera systems to ensure that every patrol officer has a camera on shift. Whenever we receive a complaint that is brought to the department's attention, we take it seriously and thoroughly investigate it. Upon completion of those complaint investigations, they are reviewed by an independently appointed police commission. So I want to talk about the complaints the department has received over the past few years. In 2017, the department received 24 complaints with 50 allegations. 19 were exonerated, 8 were sustained, 8 were not sustained, 4 were sustained, 18 unfounded, and 1 no finding. In 2018, the department received 32 complaints with 67 allegations. 20 were exonerated, 3 not sustained, 8 sustained, 34 unfounded, and 2 no findings. In 2019, the department received 26 complaints that contained 51 allegations. 22 were exonerated, 4 not sustained, 5 sustained, 15 unfounded, and 5 no findings. I know that's a lot of information to try to digest, so let me put it, the 2019 picture into some context. Out of all of the incidents handled by the police department in 2019, 0.04% of them resulted in a complaint against an officer. This demonstrates our officers' interactions with the public are handled professionally. In closing, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. I'm proud to serve this community alongside the dedicated men and women of the Missoula Police Department. We are more than just police officers. We are members of this community. We live here. We raise our families here and volunteer or participate in many community events when not on duty. Every day, our officers go on shift to keep our community safe in a professional manner. It goes without saying that we are here to serve our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief White. So I'm going to recognize next the chair of our Public Safety and Health Committee meeting and vice chair. So I'll start with Stacy Anderson and then Julie. And then I want to provide an opportunity to the folks that have joined from the student groups at the university. And so just as a queue up, if you've joined us from the Black Student Union, the Latinx group, the Pacific Islander group, Native American group, if you can, when after Stacy and Julie go, if you could raise your hand if you want to address council, and I can call on you. We can also do an old fashioned, and if that doesn't work well, if you kind of wave in the window, I'll do my best to work it that way. And before we go to Stacy, I want to also recognize that I asked Teresa Williams from the Office of Housing and Community Development to join us. She is our Reaching Home coordinator. I've worked closely with Teresa for the last several years, as well as the untold partners in the community that work to address housing and several issues. So wanted to thank Teresa for joining. She's here to listen in, and then after that, we will move to some council comments. So with that, Stacy.
Thank you, President Von Lossberg. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Chief White, for your presentation. I was frantically scribbling down numbers and statistics, and a lot of data you gave, all very important, good to put in context. And I know that President Von Lossberg talked about this at the beginning of the meeting, but I really want to, to let folks know that this is not the one and only time that we'll be discussing a lot of these really important issues. We will dive into more of these in public safety health meetings as we go forward, as well as during the budgeting process. So I realized the chief had a lot to give to us today, and people are engaging in this dialogue, and I think it's really important. But I just want to assure people that this is not the only bite at the apple per se. And I do have a couple of questions for the chief, if he wouldn't mind. I think the annual report is a great idea. I think that, we're in a unique position on council and in public safety and health. We hear a lot more of the day-to-day data that I think that the public would really benefit from hearing, especially the types of calls. Public or peace officers serve many roles in our community, not just keeping law and order, but social workers and a lot is put upon all of you. So I really do encourage and look forward to that annual report. I think it will be really important. A couple questions I have are in regards to the body cameras. So you said, we have had a body camera program since 2014, and we currently have 40 body cameras. And so I wanted just a little bit more information about, you had said you'll be bringing forward a budget request for more body cameras. I knew about that, but how do the cameras get allocated per shift right now if officers are going out on day shift, which is what we have right now happening? How are they, you had mentioned that because of charging time and downloading, not everyone gets it. So how are they allocated for the ones that are available for use in each shift, if you wouldn't mind?
So we allocate them based on the patrol function. So for example, if we are only have a limited number of cameras to distribute, they go to our active patrol officers first. And then our school resource officers would not receive one because they just have different contacts with the public. So it's not as critical for them to have them. So we prioritize them based on that officer's assignment for the day.
Great, thank you so much. And I know that you had highlighted it when we chatted about the fact that, and I want the public to be aware of this, that the police policy manual is available for the public to view. And in that manual, it does talk about our body camera system. And what I found really interesting was it actually talks about the the time in which we archive the data based on incidents. And if you could just highlight a couple off the top of your head examples of kind of, we archive data for DUIs and in domestic violence interactions and things like that. I think, how is that system worked and how is that information reviewed?
So it depending upon the type of incident dictates how long that data is retained. So obviously criminal matters, felony matters are retained the longest. Incidental contacts are not retained as long. And so there's a lot of data that we have to store. And it takes quite a while, depending upon the interactions and recordings that the officer has had during the shift. It takes a while for that to download into the system. So once it's in the system, it gets tagged by the officer at the end of each event, so they can drive our retention periods. And then it is automatically uploaded through Wi-Fi or through a docking station back at the station. And that information goes directly into our system and where it could be reviewed by supervisory staff.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Chair, may I have a follow-up? Okay, great. So you highlighted quickly about our use of force, and you hope to kind of expand upon that in the annual report that you're putting together. But I think it's really interesting for the public to know that you had already started reviewing and rewriting that document prior to the murder of Mr. Floyd. And so I just wanted for you to have an opportunity to kind of expand upon that a little bit. And then, what is the process for, you have come in, you have expertise in this area, you've decided, our Missoula Police Department use of force manual needs an update. How is that adopted? What's the procedures that goes to? And then how is that information then given to the officers, and how are they, making sure that they are following best practices?
So that review process started with me reading through the policy and finding areas that we could enhance and make our policy statement a lot clearer and a lot easier for officers to understand. The policy was solid and provided absolutely a legal and constitutional use of force based on objective reasonableness. And so it is just enhancing some of those definitions and providing, for example, one of the areas that was not explicitly in policy was the duty to intervene and report any excessive use of force incidents. We've always understood that to be an ethical issue and part of our ethical code to do that, but that wasn't a clear statement in our policy. In the revision, I have added that requirement that officers intervene when feasible and to make sure that they report it. And it is not just applicable to the Missoula Police Department. If they happen to witness any event involving any law enforcement officer from another agency, then they're to immediately contact their supervisor so that we can reach out to that other law enforcement agency. So it's things like that that are being added and clarified within the policy. It is not a complete rewrite, as the policy was based on lawful and constitutional force to begin with. So with that rewrite, we are currently evaluating it at the command staff level. So the assistant chief captains and myself are reviewing that and coming up with other ideas and what we're going to include in that. And once that's done, because it will be a change in working conditions, then I will be meeting with the police union and their policy review committee to go through that. Once that's done, I will vet it with the mayor. And once we have approved it at that level, then we will implement it. So what will happen then? So all of our policies are available to all of our staff on an icon on all the desktops. So the moment you log in, you have access to all of our policies. Mm-hmm. In addition, we use a training program for our briefing called Police One. So within that, we have the ability to individually push that policy to individual officers and ensure that they read it, and then they will acknowledge it within the system that they've received it and read it. And then we can provide them with a brief quiz on what the policies are. So we can verify that every officer has received that new policy and that they've read and understood it. And then in addition to that, we'd already scheduled some lawful use of force training that starts in July, that I will be presenting the new policy and a refresher on lawful force.
Great, thank you so much. And I know there's so many other people who we want to hear from. So with that, I'm going to yield back my time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief White.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Julie. Merritt.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief White, for this update. The statistics that you just provided us were great, and I would like to ask that perhaps if you could share those or ask someone to share those with council members via email. And if it's not already planned, to push that information out on social media. I've seen a lot of people asking for that information. So I'm really glad that provided it to us today. I have two related questions, and then because I also want to get to the other folks and hear from the other voices in our community. I'm veering off a little bit from what Stacy was talking about, but I wanted to go back to what I had expressed on Monday night about my personal concerns and those of many members of the public regarding the open carry of firearms at the Black Lives Matter protests that have been ongoing at the courthouse. And it's been suggested that while obviously open carry is perfectly legal, it can cross the line into intimidation, which is against the law. And there are statutes on the books about that. In your opinion, when does that cross the line between lawful open carry and illegal intimidation? And as a quick follow-up, what do you think, what action is required to be taken if the activity is deemed to be intimidation?
So the mere open carry of a firearm is not illegal in the state of Montana, and we cannot legally intervene in that right. So the mere carrying of that firearm in public does not meet the statutory definition of intimidation. So there has to be more overt acts regarding the firearm and presentation of that firearm in order for it to meet the legal definition of intimidation. So there would have to be more of an overt act, a threat involving the use of that firearm in order for us to meet that statutory authority in order for us to intervene. So should that occur and that be made that information be made available to the police department during any of these demonstrations, we would clearly intervene in that circumstance and investigate it and recommend charges as appropriate.
Thanks, Julie. Did you have another one follow up?
Nope, that's all I wanted to get to, and then I really am looking forward to hearing from the other folks that we have that have joined us today.
Thank you. Thanks. So I want to provide an opportunity to the folks that have joined us from UM to make any comments or address council and the chief. If you, and as I said, we've got folks from the Pacific Islander group, the Latinx group, Native American community, and Black Student Union. And if you'd like to raise your hand in the forum, I can call on you. We could go by group, and I'm not seeing anyone raise a hand.
There you go.
And I'll use the opportunity, Cal, to thank you first and foremost for your help. Would you like to make any comments to kick off? Oh, and thank you. I see the hand.
Aloha, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Ka'au Moana Ahina. I am the Diverse Youth Coordinator at the University of Montana, and I'm also the founder and president of the Pacific Islanders Club on campus. I want to invite in all of the leaders that have joined us today to introduce themselves. I feel that the City Council, it's really important for each of you to see our mayor, who has also come to our space at the university, as well as Police Chief Jason White recently has come to our space. It's important that we are able to introduce ourselves to all of you. Each one of us have had experiences in Missoula. This is not originally our home. Some of us are born here, but majority of us are from out of state. We're students, and we call this our home away from home. It is important that we're here today to share our comments and efforts towards our experiences, especially during this time, and some concerns. So thank you very much, Council, and all of you, Mayor and Police Chief, and everyone for having us be a part of this meeting today. If we can follow up on questions after, I would like Police Chief to explain a little bit about the explicit bias training to our leaders. That is also something that we are working hard within our university for our faculty and staff to also go through. And I would like him to follow up on his background with what kind of trainings in the implicit bias area that the police force has already had, if they've had any, and what to look forward to in their future training with implicit bias, and what does that entail. Again, I'm going to move it on to our leaders. I think it's important, again, for them to introduce themselves. So I'll pass on. Again, thank you for having us here.
Thanks. And just because of the sort of difficulties of the virtual meeting, let's do this. Could the folks from the Black Student Union, since I think it's around 2 or 3 folks per group, could you folks one by one introduce yourselves? And if you have any remarks, they're welcome.
Yeah, hello, I'm Natasha Kalande, former Black Student Union president at the university, just graduated. I want to thank you guys for inviting us to come, especially Kyle for putting this all together. And just thank you all for having us here.
Thanks, Natasha.
Hi, I'm Val, or Valeria. I'm the treasurer of the Black Student Union, and thank you guys for your support right now.
Thank you. Any other reps from Black Student Union?
Hello, my
Hello.
name is Elijah Fisher, and I am a graduate student, also a member, just a member of the Black Student Union, and I'm just here to listen mostly. So thank you for having us.
Thanks, Elijah. Cal, maybe you could introduce folks, hand it off to maybe the next folk with the Pacific Islanders.
Yes, I will hand it off to our treasurer, Isaac La'a.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Isaac La'a, the treasurer for the Pacific Islanders Club. And sorry, my video isn't working. If not, I would have had it working, so sorry.
No worries. Thanks, Isaac.
Aloha, everyone. Oh, sorry, Mila, you want to go? Okay, I'll go. Aloha, everyone. My name is Alexia Smith, and I'm the vice president of the University of Montana Pacific Islanders Club. And I just want to thank you for having us here, and I'm eager to listen and share my input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha,
Anyone
everyone.
else
I'm
from
Camila
the-
Tanaka.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Camila Tanaka. I'm executive board member for the Pacific Islanders Club, as well as the president for Utopia Montana, which stands for United Pacific Territories Alliance.
Thank you. Anyone from the Latinx group?
Hi again. My name is Valeria Miranda, and I'm the president and co-founder of the Latinx Student Union here on campus. It's actually about to be our second year, so we're pretty excited. So thank you guys so much for having us here.
Thank you. Valeria, is that someone else you'd hand it off to?
Oh yes, Christine, our treasurer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine, treasurer at the Latinx Student Union. Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else from that group that you folks see online?
No, no one else is here today. Sorry.
Okay. And I think anyone from the Native American community, I believe we've.
Hi, my name is Walina Oldperson, and I am the advisor to the Native American student group, Kiayu. I was unable to have students log on today just due to the short notice we had as a student group to join the call. But thank you for having me, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Elena. We'll work to improve that for some future meetings, but thanks for joining us. Is there anyone from the university, any of the student groups or advisors that hasn't had a chance to introduce himself?
Yeah, my name is Joseph Grady. I also work with Native American and Indigenous students here at the University of Montana. I was the former Diverse Youth Student Coordinator and also work directly with Ka'au. And I am now a student advisor with the Montana 10 project, advising students, but was also very much involved with a lot of the events that were going on downtown this last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Joseph. If I missed anyone, please let me know. We'll acknowledge you. Cal, I appreciate the question, and perhaps Chief White, you could respond about the Cal's implicit bias training question.
Be happy to address that. So implicit bias training is currently provided at the Montana Law Enforcement Academy. So all of our new officers do receive that implicit bias training. So what is that? So we've always received cultural diversity, sensitivity training in law enforcement. So transitioning into more of an implicit bias model allows us to understand some of those internal barriers that every single one of us as human beings may have in dealing with different situations and figuring out a way to deal with that in a professional manner, making sure that all of our contacts are based on respect, neutrality, tone of voice, and active listening. So it is a skill set that we give our officers in that training in order to accomplish those goals. And the other question was, what is my experience with it? So my experience with it is I've been through the 8-hour California Department of Justice version of that. And I also went through a 16-hour certification course to be an instructor in the California program.
Thanks. Any follow-up question, Cal?
Yes, I have a follow-up question, if I may. And Chief White, can you explain to our leadership as well if there is going to be any advanced training or anything coming up for law enforcement sooner, being that this is something that have arose, you know, in our community and around the world? Is there something that is going to be given to police officers in addition to their regular trainings that they have, you know, when they go through our, you know, 8-hour training? Basically, my question is if there's additional trainings that will be added into this.
Absolutely, that is our goal. And that was part of the conversation that you and Joseph and I had, is I'm looking for opportunities to increase that training here in the department. And we are reaching out to get input from local Montana-based providers of that training in order to do that and to contract with them, and given the additional resources to do that, we will do that. And part of that, like we discussed a few weeks ago, was a local perspective of that, and being able to have the opportunity to speak with you and possibly have members of your unions come in and provide your stories for our officers to hear as a part of that training. So those are all things that we're striving to do, and we look forward to that collaborative partnership as we try to build this going forward.
Thank you, Chief. Elijah, did you have a question? I wasn't sure if I saw you. Oh, okay, thanks. Just want to make sure. I want to go to some council questions and comments, and if I could, I'm going to call on my council Vice President Gwen Jones.
Sorry to interrupt, Gwen and Brian, but it looks like Christine is using the raise the hand function that appears on the tile versus on the participants on the side, and that kind of goes away after time. So I wanted to make sure that, since I saw that, to flag it.
Thank you for doing that. Christine, please go ahead.
Thank you, Stacy. I have a question for Chief White. How much does your current implicit bias training focus on race?
So that is a key component of implicit bias, but not at the exclusion of any other diversity groups.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. And thanks for getting my attention there. Ms. Jones.
Thanks, Brian. I wanted to thank everybody for coming to this meeting today, and thanks, Chief White, for your presentation. The comment I wanted to make is, I think for city councilors, a big part of our job, frankly, is being a conduit of communication between constituents and the city. So to all of the groups today, the Black Student Union, Pacific Islanders Club, Latinx, Native American, I just wanted to give a strong message that if you or your members of your groups or others in Missoula need information, have an issue, have an idea, reach out to your city councilors. We spend a lot of time communicating with our constituents, and that is our job, I think, amongst other things. So please do not hesitate to contact us if you need something that needs to be discussed or highlighted in any way. I know the mayor, and the mayor can speak also, but the mayor's office is also very much an open door policy. So I just wanted to communicate that. Please reach out. I think it's very important to be communicating in this environment and having that dialogue. So please do not hesitate. And thanks for coming today.
I'm just going to start working through my council queue here. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to start by saying that I am one of the biggest supporters of the police, but at the same time, I always am questioning authority in government, especially when the government is armed with a gun. Chief White, I was really excited to see that you were the one that was chosen. I think that you're one of the best hires the city's made in many, many years. So just wanted to start by saying that. As you know, I am working on a referral right now for body cams, and I was hoping that you could answer a quick question for me. A little bit about the Frank Kogar shooting back in last year. and how the body cam footage did or did not come into play in that scenario, and how you think that that situation could have been improved upon with or without body cams.
So I am unfamiliar other than just a cursory understanding of that officer involved shooting incident, just from not being here and not being involved in that investigation. So I quite honestly don't know the body worn cameras situation for that particular event. So I can't speculate or speak to facts on either side of it. I apologize for that, and I will be more than happy to get that information to you.
Follow up, Brian?
Yeah, one.
Oh, perfect. On that, so I do recognize as well that law enforcement is just that. They're law enforcement, they're not law creation, they have nothing to do with that. So will you commit to working with the legislative body, being city council, to review ordinances that are dated, discriminatory, or unnecessary to see that they can be removed from the books, and thus creating less interactions with law enforcement and less likelihood of a fatal incident or something similar to that?
I'm always willing to engage in conversation that leads to better policing practices.
Thanks. I'm going to move Ms. Cheryl.
Thank you. And I have two questions. I'll just ask them together, if that's okay with you,
yep.
Mr. Van Losper. Okay. First, thank you everyone for attending today, and thank you, Chief White, for being here. And even though we haven't met in person, it's nice to see you. You know, I came in today with a number of questions. I feel like I have more, and I know I'm not going to get them all answered today. But I do first want to also say that I really appreciate that you, before all of this, you know, right when you got in, that you started rewriting the use of force policy. I think that's really important, and having a new chief and a new set of eyes on that is really important. You know, we're all, including myself, I'm trying to understand my own bias. So this has, I think, forced all of us to think about how we see race and how we interact with the police force. So those aren't questions. I am going to ask the question. So my two questions are around, the first one around mental health care for police officers, and if there's any requirement on a regular basis, because I know there is, you know, some hesitancy with a lot of people to get mental health care. And so I'm really, I'm wondering about that, and how we, if there's any regular, you know, not just in crisis, but any regular update to kind of having them have some level of mental health care. And also with the body cameras, is that the use of the body cameras and making sure that they're actually being used, is that tied in any way to performance of police officers? And how do we ensure that they're being turned on and being used all the time?
So to address your first question regarding the mental health of our officers, that is a topic that is near and dear to me. Unfortunately, I've had numerous friends in the profession that have, the burden has become too strong and they've taken their own lives. And that's had a very significant impact on me throughout my career. So it is something that I always make sure that we are doing the best we can for our officers. Sorry, I haven't moved in a while, so my lights just went off in my office. So let me turn it back on. So, so we do numerous things. We obviously have the post-critical incident care with our officers meeting with counselors and receiving debriefs before they return to duty. But we also have peer support programs where officers can speak to one another who have been involved in similar incidents, and it doesn't have to be a critical incident. We also have a chaplain program, and our chaplains do ride-alongs with our officers and engage in conversations about that. We have resources available through an employee assistance program, so that there's some city-sponsored services that are available to our officers that we extend and do our best to make available to our officers. So We approach it on numerous fronts, but sometimes it's just that simple personal contact. So, reaching out and speaking with one another and the command staff, the supervisory staff, just reaching out via text or phone call just to check in on our officers that have gone through something is also extremely important. And those are things that we all take to heart and do. And I've spoken so much, I forgot about with the second part of your question.
Hello, this is a lifelong community member, and I would just like to state that a number of us are listening in, and we were very unsatisfied with your response when it comes to the militia, because they have been directly intimidating people. In fact, I left town because I've been doxxed by them. They put photos of me in their Liberty Coalition group, where they also talk about killing people and setting up killing training centers. So I think it's really important that you actually address the fact that there was white militia in town, that I viewed your officers fist bumping these militia, and that as an Indigenous person who has lived here my entire life, I have never felt safe or protected by you, ever. And I have had to create my own policing system with my friends so that when I feel unsafe, I can call on them because you guys do not stand up for us. And I think that needs to be addressed. I don't think we can water.
Right, Mr. Van Lossberg, would you like me to ask my other question and finish? I can't hear you. You're muted, Brian.
Sorry. Short answer is yes. I apologize for the interruption. If you could go to your second question.
Great. And you froze a little bit on my screen, Chief White, but I heard most of your answer regarding mental health care. And I think that is important for our officers, and also to make sure that we're keeping our community safe by not having officers that have PTSD and other issues around healthcare. So I appreciate that answer, and maybe I'll follow up with you since your screen froze on me. My second question was about the body cameras and the use of body cameras, and ways that you're ensuring that they're actually being turned on, and if that is tied to some sort of performance review on a regular basis by how often they're turned on, or that they're always turned on, because obviously that has been a piece of this whole national incident, is that we don't really know how much footage there might be that is of concern. Thank you.
Yes, so to answer your question regarding it being tied to a performance objective within the police department, that doesn't exist. However, we do with any critical incident, use of force incident, all of that video is recorded or is reviewed by supervisory staff to not only ensure compliance with departmental policy regarding those procedures, but also if there is no film on that when the officer has been issued a body-worn camera, then we will address that and look to see if it was something that the officer failed to initiate, or if there was a technology glitch or a failure of the piece of equipment that led to that situation. So any of those arrests and those types of things are reviewed by supervisors when video is available.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I'm going to move to Heather.
Thank you, President Von Lossberg. Chief White, it's good to see you again.
Yes, I wanted to address how I'd just like to address this is not this continues to not be an open dialogue.
Sorry, folks. I am challenged by controlling the interruptions in the meeting, and I apologize for that.
I might continue. to number one, address the folks that are trying to chime in. I think we all do appreciate.
You muting us is not actually listening.
Just so that everyone knows, there's a formality to our committee meetings, and I know it is not conducive at all to having a dialogue. So if you could just wait until the end when Brian can open it back up, please do so. Chief White, one of the questions I have today goes back to the implicit bias training. You mentioned you've had 8 hours when you became an officer in California, and then another 16 hours in order to be an instructor. I'm wondering if you can put that into the context of what the number of hours a police officer obtains learning how to use a weapon, how to use of force to de-escalate a situation in comparison to that implicit bias training that you have, so that we have some kind of context of understanding of where the difference is.
So I am unfamiliar with the Montana regulations regarding the number of hours that our officers receive at the academy. I know that the entire academy is 480 hours in length. I don't know what portion of that is dedicated to any of that type of training. In addition, we provide our officers an additional 800 hours of training as part of their orientation, their mini academy, and their field training and evaluation program. And in those hours, based on the new mini academy, we have 4 hours dedicated to that as part of our mini academy program.
And just to clarify, so that's 4 hours out of the 800 hours that is for implicit bias training?
Correct.
So that's half of 1% of training, roughly?
If that's your math,
yeah, okay. So to me, that just seems very inadequate for what we need to be with the challenges that we are facing today. From the voices that we are hearing from, that is not at all coming close to what needs to be done in terms of providing our law enforcement with the skills in order to be good community police. And I would highly encourage that you consider making some modifications to your training protocol.
Bias
so I think that's a real priority. Additionally, if it's funding additionally, if the funding is a part of it, I know.
And it has never helped the Indigenous community or any of the.
If funding's an issue for implicit bias training, I understand through the the Coordinated Justice Council that they have received funding through the MacArthur grant in order to help our first responders deal with more of this implicit bias and trauma-informed approaches. A mobile crisis unit has proven to be very effective in terms of saving dollars and producing really positive effects for communities. Every $5 to $7, for every dollar invested in mobile crisis units saves $5 to $7 on the back end. And that is the sort of thing that our community could really benefit from, both from a racial perspective as well as for our mental and behavioral health. And I'm wondering if you could talk about or address where you stand in terms of implementing a mobile crisis unit.
So I know that we currently have a grant to start a CIT program training program that will be based here out of the police department with a non-peace officer trainer that will be responsible for training first responders throughout Missoula County. So that will include the police department, the fire department, the sheriff's department, and similar. There is another grant opportunity out there through the state for a mobile crisis team. So that grant I know is being looked at. That grant is only for 10 months. And I think that that's a very challenging pilot project timeframe in order to get something up and running and initiated and implemented in a successful and positive manner. I am very much in support of having a mobile crisis intervention team that is made up of mental health professionals and the like in order for us to help in those situations, because unfortunately, without that resource, law enforcement becomes the default response to that, and it is not always appropriate as a law enforcement response. So creating those tools and creating a program that will be successful would be our goal.
So I would continue to emphasize pushing towards making sure that we get the funding, even if it's a pilot project on this particular matter, because it's how we learn whether or not this approach works or not, and the funding can be figured out.
Heather,
after.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Go right ahead. Yep, go ahead. Thanks, Brian.
No problem. There's obviously a number of people who would like to make public comment. We're not going to be able to get to everyone who is in the queue. I appreciate that, and I understand that that is disappointing to folks. I had seen Mirta and Heidi. Is there a chance that you would hold off until we have a follow-up meeting, or Heidi, I'll give you an opportunity to get something on the queue quickly, but after you and Mirta, I'm going to try to take some public comment.
Hi, thanks for giving me a chance. I think I would love for Chief White to address the eat can wait policies that have been highlighted on social media as being effective in reducing officer involved fatalities. And I know I sent them to you ahead of time, and I already heard you address adding a duty to intervene policy to our internal, I guess, standards. And I was wondering if you had a chance to look at those 8 policies, and I can read them really quick. The first one is a ban on chokeholds and strangleholds. The second one's requiring de-escalation, requiring warning before shooting, exhausting all alternatives before shooting, a duty to intervene, a ban on shooting at moving vehicles, requiring a force continuum, and then also requiring comprehensive reporting on all use of force. And I was wondering if any of those policies stand out to you as being, or I guess which ones are a part of our internal policies, and are there any that we are missing?
So the ban on chokeholds and strangleholds, our current policy, that is not part of our use of force continuum. Is it specifically prohibited? No, but it's not also part of our use of force continuum or force options. De-escalation is mentioned and emphasized throughout our policy at multiple levels. Require a warning. Case law requires officers to issue a warning if feasible prior to using any force, and our policy and processes and training comply with that legal requirement from the courts. Requires exhaustion of all alternatives before shooting. Our policy is based on the objective reasonableness of force, and in some circumstances, due to the exigency of the circumstance, an officer may not have the ability to implement any other force options prior to using a firearm without jeopardizing the safety of the public or the officer. We have an ethical duty to intervene, and now that's being explicitly added to our policy. Our current policy prohibits or discourages shooting at a moving vehicle. And if the officer is in the path of the vehicle, the first consideration based on our policy is for the officer to escape the path of the vehicle prior to engaging firearm. We have a use of force continuum, and we do require comprehensive reporting.
Mirta.
Thank you, Brian. I think it's, I just wanted to mention that I think it's unfortunate that it took the killing of George Floyd to get us all together. But I truly believe the path to change starts with participation and meaningful dialogue. So I thank you, Brian, for getting us all here today and looking forward to working with everyone who participating. Just one quick question that I have, I think for either Chief White or the mayor is, we have a police commission comprised of 3 members, and I just would like to learn a little bit more, and we can do this some other time. I realize that we have people who want to provide their comments, but I'm curious to know what their background is, and is that commission set at 3 members, or could it be expanded?
So Marta, I'm going to appreciate the question. I'm going to ask that we take that up. I think it's worth a deeper dive than we can do justice to here. And I think Chief White mentioned we do have a commission, but I'd like to get to some public comment. We're technically out of time. So
absolutely, thanks.
My apologies, but I think that's one of several topics that we should queue up in public safety and health. With that, I'm going to take a few calls here that are in the queue from the meeting. I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to start here with a number ending in 6294. Hello, caller 6294.
Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Caroline Lauer. So actually just typing up my comment because I wasn't sure if I'd get it in. I really appreciated your comments at the beginning, Council President, about saying this is a time where we can reimagine public safety. And while most of this conversation has revolved around training and body cams, and that is obviously important, I would encourage all of us as we move towards the budgeting season to imagine a world that no longer criminalizes mental illness and poverty. So I've been spending a lot of time looking at the MTI-BRS incident summary data and budget data, and just going to be kind of a lot of numbers, but in 2018, we had 7,408 total offenses, and looking at the classifications of what they were, it appears that around 1,600 were related to drugs and alcohol. And so when you look at the police budget and figure out sort of a rough calculation of dollars per offense, that totals out to around $3.5 million on offenses related to drugs and alcohol. There's plenty of data on how having a safe and affordable home can reduce issues related to drug and alcohol offense. And I think this ties in really nicely to the A Place to Call Home plan that Missoula passed, specifically which calls for the establishment of a local affordable housing trust fund, looking at, around $1 to $3 million per year from local resources. And so as we move into budgeting, I think this would be a really great time to look at more granular data on what we're spending our money on within the police program, and looking at ways we can invest in sustainable solutions that will help people who come through Missoula for a little bit or a long time with this Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Caroline. Caller ending in 1608. Public comment. Again, this is caller, your phone number ending in 1608. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move to the next number. Caller.
I'm gonna go do those things.
4799. Caller ending in telephone number 4799, if you'd like to make public comment.
Brian, can you remind people to turn off their other devices that they will be listening to the meeting on?
Yeah, it's difficult. Folks, if you are watching, if you can mute your television or any device you're watching the meeting on because of the delay, that will help. Right now, I've got caller with phone number ending in 4799, if you'd like to make public comment. Okay, I'm going to move to try a few more. Caller ending in 0224. Caller phone number ending in 0224. I've unmuted you, and if you'd like to make public comment. All right, folks. So I appreciate that this is a far from ideal way to try and receive public comment. I would remind folks that we have a number of other mechanisms to take public comment via our city email list, our city council email list, and the voicemail box, as well as a public comment box associated with the agenda item. So I apologize for not being able to get to more people in that regard, but I would encourage you to contact council with your comments. I want to again thank the folks that participated from UM. This is, I hope, the first part in an ongoing partnership at this front. And again, my special thanks to Cal for your help with all of this. We're several minutes over our agenda time. Thank you, Chief White, for having joined us, and Mayor and everybody else. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Brian, do you want to?
You got muted.
I just wondering, since we have I think a 38-minute break between now and the second cow, if we could get direction either from you or Kirsten, how best should we just mute our computers and mute our or log back in on a different?
No, stay on. It's the same as we've done. Just stay in and mute, leave your video and mute your audio, and then just come back.
And I think there's a way as you as a host can mute all of us for those who might be technologically challenged in the muting front.
I think I've proven to be very technologically challenged on that front.
I was not implying you, but I think that either if Kirsten or someone could make sure, since it will be a significant time, it'd just be nice to make sure that we're all muted.
I don't know if I am on mute right now because I can't see my controls, but yes, I do have a mute all button.
You are not muted. We can hear you.
Great. I will mute everybody now. Yeah, somebody interrupted the meeting and a couple of people interrupted.
Kirsten, we can still hear you, Kirsten.
Oops, I should be muted.
So y'all are ending public comment when you have 38 minutes between doing whatever you have to do next? For such an important topic, you're not going to extend time when you clearly have citizens who have things to say, especially people of color? I'm sure you've already muted me too.
Brian, you're muted.
Oh, I was muted.